Lincoln Legends, Lore and Langiappe presented by your Lincoln Parish Museum and Historical Society, celebrating 50 years of community support. Enjoy as our museum director, Rick Godley, takes the time to capture the stories of life in Lincoln Parish from the characters of Lincoln Parish. Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen. Rick Godley alongside Peter Jones. We just talked with Todd Maggio because a really neat event is coming up. It's gallery night, and we find ourselves literally in the Mont House, formerly known as the Tree House, but the tornado of 2019 adjusted that. And there is an opportunity on October 4th from 5 to 8 p.m., and we are sitting surrounded by the art of Peter Jones as I'm sitting next to Peter Jones. And Peter, Todd had mentioned that it's your heart's desire to get more of your work out to more people locally.
Right.
I love that idea. Talk about how that started with you.
Well, I started off, when I first came here, I was lucky enough to get a show in New York 3 years after I started teaching here. And I had, 2 shows in New York. And then I had a dealer in West Virginia take my work and have another big show. And for the next 30 years, I showed all over the Mid-South. I had a show in Woodstock, my hometown where I grew up. And I sold a lot of paintings. And I have no idea where any of them are at this point. I was delighted the other day to look online and find a little painting of mine from the late 80s in a frame that I had made, and it was sold in an auction, in an estate auction at a really good price. I thought, okay, that's great. That's a start.
Well, take us back, and we'll touch on going back to New York because you moved to Ruston in 1980, correct? Mm-hmm. How did that come in the sight of Peter Jones' life journey? Is like, I'm from upstate New York, and I'm going to go to this place called Ruston. I'm not sure where it is. And then you get to Ruston, and next thing you know, you have art shows back in New York.
I know, it's wild. I wanted to get into, I was working at that point as the art director of Vermont Life magazine for 7 years. And so I was doing graphic design, which I had to learn quickly on the job, really. And I loved doing that, but it was a part-time job. And so I had to do a lot of other jobs to get some income. So I was, I was getting a divorce, and I was, I was looking into getting, matter of fact, I applied for a graphic design job the year before I got this one, but, they hired somebody else. And then I was in 1979, I flew out, I had an interview in Wyoming at a 2-year college. A very bizarre, kind of scary country. And I got back from there, and I had a phone call from Joe Strother at Tech offering me a job. This was in June of that year. I said, sure. And then I had to sort of pray that I didn't get offered the other job because I would have had to write out a check for the airplane flight that I took out there. And I didn't, get that job. So then I came here, and, I'd never heard of Louisiana Tech, but I found that there were wonderful students, and that Southern politeness was one of the best things about where I was. Mm-hmm. And I found that, working as an artist with talented artists, basically you're helping yourself too in your own work. And so there's a nice relationship between, I always like to tell my students that, when you have 20 students in the classroom, there are 21 people learning, because there are so many talented young people, and it was such a delight to work with them. And so I did it for 31 years before I retired.
You're saying that, and I know and he was a friend of mine, Glenn Kennedy. You learned from him, I'm sure, as well.
Oh, yeah, and he learned from me, and
right.
We worked together. Glenn was a terrific, as an undergraduate student. When I first came here, I got to know him, and he was a really nice guy. And then, when he came back into graduate school, we worked very closely together. Mm-hmm. And it was just heartbreaking.
Oh, I know.
I have several of his paintings that I bought. Yeah, he was amazingly
We need to do a display of his paintings somewhere sometime
absolutely.
to because he's just way too talented for too many people not to know that he literally walked the streets here. But this is the Peter Jones. It's a gallery night. It's going to be at the Mount House. It's going to feature the art of Peter Jones. Yes, they will be available for purchase. And one of the things, Peter, is that there will be no commission fee, correct? So, I mean, the prices should be, I mean, the prices and the pieces are affordable for the whosoever's of the world, I would
Right,
say.
and right now, I mean, the unframed work, which looks great, you know, if you frame everything, you're going to spend a lot of money and a lot of time. And it's nice to have things unframed that look this good because people could choose their own frame, first of all. You know, so it's not like, you know, you have to try to guess correctly over 60 paintings.
Right.
You know, I've spent a long time, you know, studying frames and working with Bob Kulick, who was a friend in New York, and he was actually a frame genius. He was a very good painter of small still lifes, but he also made reproduction antique frames, 300 of them in the Metropolitan Museum, his company. And then he got into those little cast frames that were really cheap, made in Mexico, but finished nicely up to this. And so I've got a bunch of those things. And those things used to be about $15 a piece. And now they're a little bit more if you go online. But, you know, Kulik was a really good, you know, he was very helpful to me, and he taught me how to finish a frame. And I did a bunch of that for myself back in the 80s.
Well, people that know the art of Peter Jones, your signature is still life. So take us back to Peter Jones, the teenager, Peter Jones, the doodler, Peter Jones, the this painter on the subway cars. When did you settle into still life? When did that start to take?
It's a long story because I did a lot of other things before I got into still lifes. I grew up in a family. My parents were both artists, and they came to Woodstock for that reason. As a matter of fact, every one of their dear friends were artists, and so I thought everybody went to a studio when I was little. And my father, set me up in the studio and gave me paints and things to work with, pastels, starting when I was 5. And he encouraged me to make things completely abstract, just design things. And so I spent the next few years doing abstractions with color. And then he gave me a show at a friend's university, Columbia University school, and in Pennsylvania. But of course, I grew out of that, as kids do, and I got into wanting to try to draw from memory, you know, horses and things like that. And so I took some time out of that. You know, I couldn't get back to that childhood thing. But then we went to. My father was teaching at Vassar College, teaching art, and he got a sabbatical to go to Italy for a year. And so when I was 14, my brother was 12, we went to Italy, and my brother and I spent the year in Switzerland in boarding school. And my father gave me a really nice roll film camera. And I got hooked on photography when I was 14. I just loved it. So I was, photographing the basketball team from the school, and I've actually gone back and found the pictures that I shot in that year, and printed them and sold some in exhibits. Of course, it's nice to have a grown-up editing your stuff.
Right. Right.
But yeah, and then I mean, went to college. My father died that year, and that shortened a lot of things for me. And I didn't get
At
back
age
in.
14?
Yeah, I was 14, and he died suddenly in Rome. And then I went to boarding school. I went to college, and I studied art history and art and studio. And I didn't know whether I wanted to go into one or the other. Then I took a gap year after I graduated from Amherst College, and I worked in New York, and ended up with a friend of my brother's, my younger brother's, who was working in a little, photo shop underneath the Rockefeller Center in the subway. And it was 11 hours a day. It was a weird job, but I got hooked again on photography then. And but then I got into graduate school at NYU in art history for a year. And and I was still doing, on weekends, I would be printing pictures and doing this stuff. And so I then took this is an interesting story, but I took one of those visits to Europe with a former roommate of mine from Amherst College. And we got a car and went all over the place. And I shot photographs everywhere. And by August of that year, I said, I don't want to be an art historian. I want to be an artist. So I came back, and fortunately, my father's best friend, Gene Ludens, was on the faculty at the University of Iowa. And so I got in there. I spent the next 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
And, there
As a student.
As a student, as a graduate student.
Gotcha.
And I got an MA, and then I went to New York and worked on the thesis for the next 2 years for my MFA, which I got in '69, and then I got my first teaching job at Sullivan's College in Bristol, Virginia, which was my first taste of the South, and it was a great experience.
Well, you're living proof that Ruston is a really cool place to be because it's a great place to get away from, and it's an even greater place to get back to. And you can be here, walk the streets literally, because I see you do it a lot, but have a global impact. I mean, your artwork, is it fair for me to assume that it's on 7 continents?
Well, pretty much. I mean, I spent 3 summers in the '80s in '89, '90, and '91. I spent a month each summer in Italy painting landscapes.
Mm-hmm.
And I did not take photographs when I was being a tourist. I kept a sketchbook when I was being a tourist. So I made drawings the whole time, quick drawings, sometimes longer drawings. And I only shot slides when I was making a painting. So I would have, in case I wanted to do, and I've done a few big paintings when I gotten back from the slides, but it's not the same thing to work from a slide. It's not the same thing as looking at the thing in actual light, because the camera doesn't know how to make multiple exposures.
Right.
Digitally, though, it's different.
We were talking about time and what it means as we age up. You get 24 hours in a day. How long did it take you to do a painting? You obviously, to say you're gifted is an understatement, but how long does it take? This is prolific.
It's not an hourly business. It's weird. I remember when I spent, I think 10 days, working on a still life that had a nice cut artichoke in it. And then I finished it, and then I set up, I had another panel, and I did a different variation on it, and I finished that painting in 45 minutes, having spent, hours and hours and hours, and I sold both of them for the same price, which is, it's what it is, because it's not an hourly business.
Right. Right.
And sometimes the more time you spend on something, the worse it gets.
Right.
But, we don't put those out. We just put them away. But it's been a very interesting experience.
I bet. I guess, the inspiration facilitates maybe how long it goes. Have you ever stayed up days on end finishing a project, or do you know when to walk away, rest, and come back? And when do you know when to put the?
Well, I like North Light, and I had a studio built in 1984 when I bought that old house, which has a beautiful North Light window. And North Light is what the old masters used because the color of the shadows is the warm, brownish gray. It's complementary to the bluish light coming in the north light. But if you're looking at, if you're an impressionist, you're looking at shadows in sunlight, and you get blue and violet and stuff. All these colors that the impressionists used to use. But the old masters, and the nice thing about that is that in the morning and the afternoon, the light is the same, the shadows are the same shape, so you can work on something all day if you had to, and the light isn't changing.
See, I'm not talented, so I don't see what you see, but now it makes sense to me. It's called still life. I can't, I guess you can paint it from memory, but you keep looking at it and paint it
Yeah,
as it
no,
is. It's
yeah. Still life is I mean, Cézanne did wonderful still lifes, but they were, they had this abstraction in them that were very, very, it got people really involved with the move towards abstract painting. But I sort of wanted to get into, I love Cézanne and I love the Impressionists, and I started to look at where they came from. And the, uh, Pissarro, who was a great painter of landscapes, uh, he was a follower of Corot, who was an earlier French painter. And I had written my honors thesis in college on Corot, so I knew all about the early paintings that he did in Italy, which were sketches they were basically, my art history teacher said they were Corotochromes because Corot never sold any of these wonderful things when he was, uh, a very successful artist. He used these sketches so he could make up backgrounds for the big paintings that he did. But now they've been really admired.
well, to me, an artist also, you're creating your creations. Obviously, it's not hard for you to let some of them go. Are there any pieces that you personally have that you'll never let go?
Yeah, yeah, there are a few. I mean, I have a couple of Trompe l'oeil paintings that,
I'm talking Peter Jones paintings, not other artists.
Trompe l'oeil means
Okay.
you fool. They are paintings that are so realistic that you have to get up really close to see that they're painted. Uh, and they were done in the 17th century and in the 19th century. And I used to do an exercise in one of the painting classes where I set up a bunch of things lit on a board with, and so it's something really flat, but you get these little shadows in there and it makes it look very realistic. So, I've done three of those. I sold one. My son has one that I really like, and I have another one which I'm going to give to my daughter because I'm not going. You can't. It takes too many hours to do that. I'd have to charge thousands of dollars for this.
Worth every penny. But if you don't
Yeah,
have thousands of dollars,
right.
that's why you want to come
No, but
to.
I wanted to keep. I'm keeping a few of those things, but
Sure.
I have a lot of paintings that I really like to see in people's collections. I think it's great.
That is awesome. No, that is awesome. And at the Maj, 707 Robert Street in Ruston, October 4th, 5 to 8 p.m. It is a gallery night here at the Mount House, formerly known as the Tree House, of Peter's work, and all work will be available for purchase. I really appreciate you doing this too. I mean, listen to me talking to you. I'm impressed with these paintings. Who am I to judge this? They're Peter Jones, but these things are awesome. This is like Rustin right over our shoulders. I love it.
Well, artists need to have people respond to their work. I mean, it's the reward.
Mm-hmm.
The money is good, but
Sure.
the choice is what really counts.
Right. Right. Peter, I appreciate all that you do.
Okay. Well, I appreciate what you guys are doing.
Thank you.
It's great. Thank you.
Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Rick Godley, and we are going to be talking about a really neat, unique event that is organized by Todd Maggio, the Maj, and it's gallery night at Mount House featuring the art of Peter Jones. It's going to be on October 4th. It'll be from 5 to 8 p.m. or beyond, and all the work that's going to be on display is available for purchase. So, Todd, first of all, talk about the inspiration as to why we're going to have the artwork of Peter Jones here and have a celebration of people coming together, celebrating the art, and also the opportunity to take some of Peter Jones' art home.
Sure. So my relationship with Peter goes back to my undergrad years at Tech. He was one of my professors. And then when I came back to teach, he was one of my colleagues. So we've had a long running relationship. And I'd always wanted to purchase some of Peter's work. And that really crystallized whenever I partnered up with Judy Null, and we were running Ruston Artisans, and I was in charge of installing all the shows. So I became very intimately familiar with all the artists' work locally, especially Peter's. And finally, when the master show came around, I decided that's when I was going to buy some of Peter's work. Went to his house to pick up the piece, and he took me on a tour of his studio. And I was blown away by the amount of work that was sitting on vertical shelves in his studio. And some pieces, or many pieces, that I had never seen, and I knew that most of the other people had never seen. Works that I'm assuming Peter probably considered studies or something that you wouldn't necessarily see at a place like the Master. And as we talked, Peter had expressed a desire to have his work in the homes of local collectors, especially within Ruston. And so after I left his house, by the time I made it back to my house, I had decided that this is what was going to happen. I was going to have a party in honor of Peter, take all the art off my walls, put all of his art up, and just have an exhibition like I would have at Ruston Artisans, and see if we can't get more Peter's work out in the hands of people in Ruston.
So we're sitting at 707 Robert Street where the event will be held. It'll be October 4th from 4 till 8 p.m., maybe even beyond. That depends. But you have 60 pieces all around the house that were...
Over 60 pieces.
And so from everything that's around behind me, and I have to admit, I've known Peter for as long as I've been in Ruston, and I've never seen small pieces of art like this. So this is kind of art for all is what this literally could be Peter Jones' art for all.
I would say this is probably one of the most accessible shows of Peter's work. So there's something, a little something for everyone.
And so you got to go behind into the inner sanctum of Peter Jones' studio. What percentage of art do you think you got out of there, and what percentage of art is still back there?
It's hard to say. I don't think I've seen everything that was in there. I wouldn't even say half, maybe.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, it was a volume.
All right, so if you want to come, it'll be October 4th. Anything else I need to add to the equation for the invitation? Is this going to float around your birthday or on your birthday, or is that even a factor in this equation?
Close to the birthday. It's kind of a de facto birthday party, but really, it's really in Peter's honor.
Awesome, awesome. Well, Todd, I appreciate you doing this.
Sure. Thank you for coming.
You're welcome.
We don't make any mistakes. We just have happy accidents. So anything that happens here, you can work with it.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming. Please drive carefully and arrive home safely. Good night.